Hi guys, Greg at Best Choice Trailers. Today I wanted to take you around a Sure-Trac 7x14, 14,000 pound telescopic dump trailer. I wanted to show you some of the benefits of this particular style hoist. This is one of 3 style hoists that Sure-Trac offers: the dual piston, the scissor, or the tele. Everything you see here other than the hoist is all standard equipment. So let's take a walk around the trailer. We'll show you all these features as well as the optional telescopic hoist. So up front, it's got a standard 2 5/16 inch cast adjustable coupler. Notice it's got a 6-hole adjustable. It's got the integrated reinforcement there. And forward is open, backward is closed, which is counter to some coupler styles. It's got this setback 7K drop leg jack out of the way of your truck tailgate as opposed to your traditional A-frame. It's also got the drop leg. You'd pull a pin, drops to the ground, and then your handle will wind out the outer sleeve, which gives you some additional adjustment. Also notice there's a grease zert for serviceability. Notice the jack is bolt on, it's not welded on. If you ever need to replace it, you want to move it, etc., fairly easy to do so. It's also got an integrated plug holder. It's got a standard 7-pin RV style plug. Sure-Trac also does integrated safety chain holders, and I also tend to put them up front here as well on mine. It's fully sealed wire harness, grommeted, ran in frame. Of course, it's got your standard breakaway cable. 110-volt charger is standard equipment on the 7-foot wide heavy-duty series Sure-Trac dumps. Simply plug it into 110-volt house current, and it'll keep your battery maintained. Now, that said, it is a 2-amp charger. This is a 140 amp hour battery, so that's about 70 hours of charging from a fully discharged state on a Group 24. So again, leave it charged for a weekend, not an overnight if you're gonna be using it heavy on the weekend or during the week. Now you notice there's 2 extra lines per terminal on the battery. The blue one's gonna be in a separate, smaller wire harness that's going to go out the back. That is for the truck side auxiliary wire harness. So that's going to give you about a 3.7 amp hour charge off the truck. The second line here is going to go to your 2-amp battery charger. So you're actually going to get 2 types of charging on this, both which are lower amounts of charge. They're not a fast charge. They're not a high duty cycle charge. There's other additional ways to keep that maintained. But for more homeowner light commercial use, somebody's not necessarily dumping 5-10 times a day, these are your 2 tools that come standard. So again, this would take 110 house current. The other one's a set it and forget it. As long as you've got a working charge line on your truck, which most trucks do come set up with that standard, it will give you some charge. What some folks don't understand is that this is a small, I believe that's a 14 gauge line. That's a minimal amount of charge. Some folks think that you can run direct, that this is all a power line, which it is not. There's 7 individual wires coming out of that 7 wire whip. So again, this is not direct. You can get auxiliary wire harnesses separately for high duty cycle users, similar to a 2 gauge or 4 gauge winch auxiliary line, also called a welding wire. So on the telescopic, this is a power up, gravity down. Because it's gravity, it's basically pushing all the fluid out and then bringing it all back into the reservoir. Obviously, for that, it needs a bigger reservoir as opposed to the dual piston, which has a much smaller 6-quart reservoir. It is a KTI pump. See the USA sticker on it. So again, lockable toolbox. Keys are on the back side of the lock. That'd be pretty standard on most in the industry. I'll do it the same way. On a telescopic hoist, you've got zerts top. Got some in the center there. Standard for 2021 now is a TARP kit. Notice it's got ball bearings with a spring-loaded handle. It's got a zert on it. It's also an aluminum rod, you can see, not a black iron rod. It's got grommets, and then you've got your line for pulling it back to the rear. That is standard for 2021. You also notice 5 D-rings, so you got the 4 corners and then front and center. Also notice those are all full seam welds in the bed. Many manufacturers will stitch weld. This is all full seam welds. Also got a 10 gauge floor 10 gauge is pretty well industry standard. This is the traditional stack frame, so it's got the tongue, full wrap, then it's got your main frame, then it's got your bed frame. Now, some manufacturers now are using what we call mono frame. Mono frame uses a little bit less steel because you're using one piece all the way from the front to the back. And then this area right here, about 6 foot or better, 6.5 foot, is not stacked like that. It's only a single layer, so to speak. So on this one, we've got basically about a 9 and change foot-pound tube stacked times 2. There's about 19 foot-pound of steel there, where many manufacturers are going to use an 8-inch 10 foot-pound I-beam. So you're losing quite a bit of steel in your most critical area, because keep in mind, from the front of the axle to the coupler, that would be your clear span. With a stacked frame, it cuts your clear span down, makes it stronger in this most critical area of the trailer. Sure-Trac does use a 2-foot side, which is pretty well industry standard. Some do use a shorter side. 2 foot generally gives you good balance between, if you're stone, you're not going to fill it all the way up. If you're mulch or residential debris, construction debris, you can probably fill it up, and then also take advantage of the 1 foot built-in bulkhead for your side extensions. Get about 7.9 cubic yards inside the bed level full. Stake pockets are standard. You'll notice these stake pockets are a little taller, and they bring it out flush to the outside of the rail, that if you put a 2x4 in to build the sides up. All full seam welds. Notice that's supported off your integrated keyway, which integrated keyway gives you a lot of strength without a whole lot of additional weight in the side of the trailer. Also gives it a nice look. Much like a house foundation, that keyway is going to give you a lot of strength while picking up minimal additional weight. Going down the sides, we've got the capability to tie off a bungee cord to the ropes going down the side. Double broke fenders, standard equipment. Double broke gives you a little bit more strength than the single broke fenders. Also has a side step for standard equipment. Trailer is powder coated. It also comes standard with the bullet LED lights. It's a newer style light. Has the forward adjusting brakes, which is a newer style brake. Also has the Easy Lube hubs. If you're not familiar with the Easy Lube hubs, there's a grease zerk behind the black cap. Simply grease it till you see the old grease come out the outside of the outer bearing. Fairly simple while they're new. Normally you can push them in by hand, don't need extra tools. The green cap would signify these are nitrogen filled tires. Nitrogen filled would help keep the dry rot on the tire down, as it would reduce the moisture that would typically be in an air filled tire. It's got a radial tire, 235/80 R16 load range E 10 ply. It's on an 8-on-6.5 silver mod wheel. Notice the suspension on these is a slipper spring. It's also got the wet bolt kit on those. A lot of manufacturers don't use wet bolt kits on these. Just gives you the ability to better service your trailer, make it a little bit longer lasting. Also notice at the rear side of the bulkhead, the lights are up high. Makes it where the lights are more visible for the guy behind you to see you. Also, 2021 got a little bit heavier duty reinforced gate, a little bit heavier hinging. Of course, you got your standard grease zerks, but up top here, a little bit heavier hinge across there, and added the grease zerks on it. Also, wrapped that top rail with a heavier rail, gave you a heavier hook bar. And then also, one of the things I really like about Sure-Trac, you've got a very simple to deploy ramp. Some manufacturers do a little bit more elaborate style boxed in setup, but oftentimes we see them rust out at the hinges. This is a very simple yet effective design. 2021, they went to a little bit wider ramp. You got about 2-3 more inches of width. Traditional 3-inch channel constructed ramp, very simple grab handle at the rear. That ramp simply hooks on the back here. Traditional cam bar lock. Like how they do their chains, we simply cross them and then hook down in for a little bit of peace of mind going down the road. It says a spreader gate and a barn door, so you can open the gate up, swing it back to the side, or you can set your depth gauge on these and then release your gate, put your pin keep from losing it, and then you'd spread your stone or aggregate or similar. So this is a 7x14 box. As we said, it's about a 7.9 cubic yard. If you do your side extensions, every foot of side is going to give you roughly another three or so yards. Let's put the bed up on this, show you the underside. So your dual pistons are generally going to be a power up, power down. Your scissors and telescopics generally are going to be a power up, gravity down. Telescopic, what makes it super efficient, it's a 3-stage hoist. So we're in first stage right now, gives you maximum lift ability. Second stage is going to speed up a little bit. You've already got the load shifting rearward, so don't need quite as much girth on the lift. Can quicken up a little bit. Last stage of the lift, you're going to get significantly quicker. So one thing about telescopic, it's always going to be in the right gear, so to speak. Generally speaking, on telescopic, I have yet to find a user that's anywhere near legal with a load that this lift will not pick up. It's a super efficient hoist. Unlike a dual piston where you've got horizontal mounted pistons trying to redirect force vertical, this is already vertical trying to go vertical. So, you overcome the major hurdle. Next thing would be a dual piston is going to mount at the midpoint of the fender. Scissor mounts exactly at the front side of the fender. Telescopic has a ton more leverage mounted all the way to the front. Next hurdle a dual piston and scissor have to overcome, they're a single speed hoist, meaning there is no 3-stage like this telescopic. So they have to have the maximum force needed to get the load started, and if there's not enough force, it just won't lift the load. Telescopic hoist is staged appropriately, just like a bicycle. It's always in the right gear, or can be put in the right gear, I should say, rather than the single speed bikes. So again, the right gearing would be your third thing, and then this being a gravity down, you're also going to save a little bit of power on the way down each time. I can't tell you exactly how many dump cycles per battery charge you'll get, but it will be more on a telescopic than a dual piston or a scissor. That said, many of our users, even commercial users, find that as efficient as this hoist is, that little bit of trickle charge that they're going to get from the truck is oftentimes enough for the average commercial user to get by. A lot of times with this efficient of a hoist, they can get away from all the supplemental charging, the 110 volt chargers, the solars, the Boss 20 amp inlines. A lot of times you can get away from all that just by having a more efficient hoist type. Not a whole lot of downsides on the telescopic. You get a colder day, it might take a little bit longer to get down because it is gravity. But other than that, not a whole lot of downsides on a system like this. Underneath, one or two things a little bit different on the Tele. Of course, dual piston, it's going to be bulkheaded out. This one doesn't need to be because your push points aren't there. Of course, they're up front. Underbody tool tray storage is standard equipment. Notice all the wiring's grommeted, sealed, ran in frame. Notice the brake connections on these are sealed, ran in frame as well. On this, you'll notice that the ramp has 1/2 inch plate at the end. A lot of them are 1/4 inch. If you look specifically at the end, that's your wear point. They are thicker than most in the industry, and then your tube would simply be your retainer that would keep it from pulling away from the trailer. You also notice this is a 4-inch tube bed frame. Cross members fill that full 4-inch. These are 4-inch cross members. A lot in the industry will specify a 16 on center or whatnot. Sure-Trac does not specify a certain on center because each trailer has different load points and requires different cross member spacings. But what they do also do is look at cross member size, and these do have a 4-inch. Industry standards generally going to be a 3-inch cross member. This trailer is going to weigh in just under 4,000 pounds. It's going to give you a net legal payload of about 10,000 on the trailer. You're also going to pick up about 2,000 pounds, give or take, fully loaded to the tongue. It's going to give you a net legal payload between 10 and 12,000 depending on how the trailer's loaded. We do also stock this in a 12, 14, and 16 foot length, in a gooseneck and a bumper pull. Traditionally, we do it in a 14,000 GVW. 12 footers we can also get in a 12,000. And then we also offer it in the 8,000-pound upgrade. Also available in the high side model as well. If you have any questions on this or any of our other trailers, feel free to give us a ring, 717-220-4220, or you can visit us on the web at bestchoicetrailers.com. Thanks for looking.